Hello, and welcome to the Full of Ship podcast. Real answers to real problems. With your host, Kyle Henderson, CEO and co-founder of VIZION API, a podcast dedicated to demystify the chaotic, often turbulent world of ocean freight. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to another episode of Full of Ship. I'm your host, Kyle Henderson. And today we welcome Matt Motsick. Matt, am I pronouncing your name correctly? I wanted to make sure I got that.
You are. A lot of people put the S before the T and then they slaughter my last name. But no, you actually hit it right on cue there. So great job.
Thank you. Matt Motsick, CEO of RPA Labs. Really excited to have you today, Matt. Can you tell us a little bit about your long career in supply chain, just to get the conversation warmed up? And it sounds like you were doing stuff in this space like long before the Suez Canal got something stuck in it, kind of thing. So just give us a little bit of your background in supply chain.
Yeah. So I was actually a BCO. I was a shipper. So I was responsible. This is in the early 2000s. I was responsible for making sure that we chose the right partners, logistics partners for container movements from China, and then also exports out from the U.S. to Australia, Denmark, and all sorts of countries. And so I ran a lot of the export, the import, as well as the domestic transportation for a mid-size scrapbook photo album company in Kansas City. And one of my biggest challenges there was getting a quote. It took forever to get a quote back from the freight forwarders. And so I said, oh my gosh, it's taken, sometimes it was 2 to 3 days. And I said, there has to be a better solution. And so basically right from, going to BCO, I started a company called Catapult International. We were actually one of the first rate management companies that were starting with SaaS-based, online, log into a website. Some of our competitors had Citrix, where you actually had to log into Citrix, and then, or some of them actually were just on the, phase where they had to just look up these binders. So they put the ocean contracts in to these binders, then they'd have to look up every single rate, in these binders. And so what I said was, look, we can really hit two birds with one stone by, number one, providing a rate management system to freight forwarders, so then they can quote back to the customers within seconds, by actually having the contract rates already there. It's kind of like a Travelocity system, or a kayak system where you can see all of your rates apples to apples. So we built that. Again, we were one of the first online ones, true SaaS players in that market. And then this was back in 2008. And, then the recession hit 2009. Both me and my business partner, our wives were really getting at us to get full-time jobs because of the recession. And, I had 3 best friends. I had that would call me every night. It was Visa, MasterCard, American Express, wanting to know when they're going to, when I'm going to pay them back, on the credit cards, So I truly had the startup life of not knowing what tomorrow brought. But anyway, we ended up getting, a lot of traction in Catapult. We actually garnered about 33% of the market share of the top 20 global freight forwarders. So they were all on Catapult. We managed hundreds of contracts, ocean contracts for freight forwarders. And then turned out this company out of Dubai acquired us through Warburg Pincus. And then I was kind of sitting on the sidelines, and this is kind of how it goes. I was looking at automation, and I was looking at RPA, and I said, oh my gosh, we had over 100 people in the Philippines just structuring contracts and digitizing contracts from paper to Excel and, putting it into our database, right? So I said, oh my gosh, automation would have helped, Catapult at the time. And I know it's going to help, freight forwarders. So that was really kind of the epiphany of knowing that there's a lot of automation opportunities, not only in the document game, but also in the customer response. And so that's really kind of the reason why we started RPA Labs.
And it sounded like that classic startup story of you had some pain around it, right? You're like, why do we need to be dependent upon an army of people? And they're doing a good job. That's not the issue. Like, but
Right.
like there's still issues when you go that route. But
Right.
and maybe for the listeners, when did RPA Labs start?
Yeah. So
Where are you guys at today?
So we started in late 2018, early 2019. So we're really only a 2.5-year-old company. So we're still pretty much in startup land. However, we're up to 40 employees now. We've got teams in, of course, all over the U.S. and then also in Nepal. We've got a 20-person. We've got a development team in Nepal. We have a development team in India. But we're pretty much global. We've got customers in Australia, Singapore, even Israel, Austria, Germany, and then as well as the U.S. So it's more of a global business.
You were mentioning, and I'm assuming this from what you said, that the key customer base for RPA Labs are forwarders, 3PLs. Is that correct?
Yeah, forwarders, 3PLs. Yeah, and the reason why we went with these guys or went with this group here is because number one, I've got a pretty good Rolodex of freight forwarders already from my previous company at Catapult, and then number two is if you really think about the freight forwarder or the 3PL, they are in between everything. So, interactions from the vendor side, such as, the manufacturing company, the pickup location, delivery location. So they're all in it with interactions between the vendor and then also the customer. So they get a lot of documents running through their systems. They get a lot of conversations running through their systems. A lot of emails that are just manually, replied to. So we think that automation is perfect for freight forwarders and 3PLs because it just speeds up their whole entire business.
And curious, digitization has been hot in this topic area.
Yeah.
Tons of investment has shown up in the last few years for supply chain logistics oriented technology companies. In this spot around process automation, forwarders, why is that segment so ripe for digital disruption? Like why haven't they been able to make the jump themselves, and what's driving the change now?
Yeah, I think a lot of companies still don't know what's out there. And so it's still early in the adoption part of it. I spoke to a major freight forwarder, and they said, "Wow, in 2 years, you guys are just going to take off." And I said, "Why two?" He said, "Because it takes at least 2 years for companies to really. It's like an ad, on TV. You have to see it like 6 times before you say, 'Oh crap, we really need this,' right?" So yeah, we're still early in the adoption, and even the companies that have come on, they're early adopters, but they're already seeing a lot of savings in terms of rekeying, from bills of ladings or SLIs or pick up documents into their systems. There's a lot of rekeying there. I was in Hong Kong for a little bit, and there was literally a staff of a cube farm of people, of 50 people. Just all they did was they took the files, they printed them out, and then they rekeyed it into the system, right?
Yeah.
So we're basically automating that process,
And it's a tough too, because like those are valuable people in the sense that they actually know the industry to a certain extent. There's some knowledge there. Like they could potentially be repurposed for doing
Absolutely
more impactful work. Like
Yeah.
don't just like focus on getting it done. Focus on how can we do it better, even
Right.
type activity.
And
And
COVID accelerated this because as more shipments were coming in, because of COVID, and they were still maintaining their same staff. And so
yeah,
you either have a choice. You have a choice of adding more people or buying technology that helps you scale. And so that's kind of where we fit in right there.
And to make that comparison, let's just for simplicity's sake, the old way of doing it, manual, the new way of doing it, process automation, robotic process automation.
Yep.
Um, what does that mean to their business? Like, what does that change in terms of like the metrics of their business? Like, how do you tell the story of comparing the old school to the new school when you're talking to a forwarder?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the basic common denominator of a lot of companies, a lot of like 3PLs and freight forwarders of, you know, what's my what's my earnings per shipment, right?
Mhm.
What do I need? What are my costs that are involved to process a shipment? And so, our goal is to, number one, reduce that cost, per shipment, um, of expenses per shipment, and then also increase the response rate going back to customers. And so we kind of see it as a dual sided to where, forwarders are looking at, scaling their business to where they can bring in more shipments without adding more people. And that's really more on the operations side. And then on the sales side, I see it as, we're actually producing email automation bots that can help provide answers back to typical questions such as where's my shipment, tracking, or you know how much
I've heard of that one. I've
yeah,
heard that
right,
question before.
right, exactly. And I know of a really good company that has that tracking API, right? Yeah, and so we're really kind of hitting both sides. We're hitting more on the sales side and on the operations side as well.
You said that response rate. Uh,
Hmm.
what are you measuring response? Is it like how many get a response, time to first response? Like, what is it that actually like? Is this one of those like classic like search engine like back in the mid '90s stories where it's like all the other search engines were kind of making directories and you'd have to go and navigate and it had a lot of rich UI and they're trying to make portals and bring people in and spend time. But then you had Google who showed up and said, no, our number one objective is to have you spend the least amount of time on our website getting to the stuff that you want to see. And we want you to come back again and again and again.
Right.
And we actually value you coming back again and again and again and giving you your answer fast. So is it like when you say response rate, what does that mean on the ground for these forwarders?
Yeah, we take a little bit of a different approach than, let's say, the digital UI systems, right?
Mhm.
Our approach is, you know when all these digital companies come on board to help freight forwarders provide that front end interface for the customers, right? We're a little bit different than that because what we believe is the user will use that system for maybe 2 weeks, a month, but then sometimes they'll also resort back to the common lowest denominator, and that is email, right? And so companies, freight forwarders, are getting hundreds still in 2022. They are getting hundreds of emails a day asking for quotes or asking for tracking, right? And while the company has said, hey, just go to our site and look it up, right? They still use email. And so what we've done is we've built email automation on top of it to where if a query comes in on email, um, our bot can actually understand what it's looking for, go to the database or go to the API, look up the information, and then reply back to the customer within 30 seconds. Where normally it could take 4 hours for a company, it could take 24 hours to a company. We can get it back in 30 seconds. And so we're really focused on providing that email automation to where quick responses really wins the game a lot of times.
And why did you decide to go that route? Like, it sounds like you have some thoughts on like the cost of change or change management and what that might mean to like achieving what you need to achieve immediately.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. I mean, what we want to do is we wanted to say, look, freight forwarder, you don't have to change the way you operate, right? Because they're still going to come in through email. They still are, and so don't change the way you operate. Let's just add a back end component to where it can automate that response. So yeah, change management is minimal, in our game, because we want to make sure that we're not doing a whole uplift of a total different shift of a new way of doing things. So yeah, that's kind of the way we look at it.
And curious, it seems like information sourcing and fixing workflows, it's starting to get more mature in the space. And after these day-to-day workflows are kind of automated and more data is ingested, log tech, et cetera, let's call it, whatever, 2.0, 3.0, 7.0, whatever it is nowadays.
Yeah.
Where do you think, TMS, ERPs, EDI, et cetera, is going to be in like 10 years as this wave gets bigger and bigger and maybe crashes it crashes on the legacy, I'd say.
Right.
What will the landscape look like in the future?
I mean, I think that ERP systems are going to go from 50 screens down to maybe 8 screens, maybe 5 screens, and I think that's, simplification of the industry to where they don't have to type in the same thing going in one system. I've seen a system out there that basically you go in and you get a rate in one system. Then you have to take the same information and then rekey it in the same system in a different tab, right? It's nonsense, right? So how can you then automate just even, reducing the screens down from 50 to even 5, right?
Yeah.
That's where I think that a lot of systems will be, per se. It's just be a little bit more simple and let automation kind of help, drive efficiencies to where you can move data from a document into a system, or from one part of a system to another system, or even like from one system to another system, right? That's where I see a lot of simplification of systems in general. Is just, there's really no need to have a huge, enterprise system that has, 50 different tabs, 50 different screens on it.
So I hear RPA Labs is headed to TPM. Vision is headed to TPM.
Awesome.
But the rumor I heard is that there's going to be an awesome boat party or something like that. I heard like RPA Labs is getting the biggest yacht available or something. What's going on there?
Well, we don't have your VC money yet, your size VC money yet, but no, what we've done, and this is just kind of goes from experience. I've been to 10 plus TPMs, right? And what I found is that there is a place where you can actually, it's like a boat and breakfast. So instead of a bed and breakfast, it's like a boat and breakfast. So they have like 4 yachts on this dock, and we're staying on the boats. And it's awesome because there's 2 bedrooms per boat, and we're able to go in. And so we're going to have a dock party for a lot of the invites. We're sending out an invite list, and so a lot of our customers are going to be there. And we're really looking forward to it. It's just kind of more of like a side, a side party from TPM. It's not sponsored or sanctioned by TPM at all or by JOC, but it's just kind of our own little thing. So yeah, we're really
invite only.
Yep, we're looking forward to that. Yep, we're looking forward to that. So give me
black tie affair.
No,
yeah.
not even close. But we're looking forward to it.
My last question: over the next 12 months, what's your number one piece of advice for a forwarder to greatly benefit their business?
I would say that keeping up on what's out there in technology, and I'm not just talking about my company, I'm talking about really any company, is that technology is fastly getting adopted by companies and competitors. And so, companies need to speed up, their processes, for sure. And so whether they can receive the right data sets, such as VIZION, or, improve their processes, with RPA Labs, I think the adopters that come on quicker and earlier are going to be better off going forward, and they're going to have a leg up on their competition, quite honestly.
Well, Matt, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you for being a guest on our show. Any last comments, questions you might have?
No, this is great being on your webcast, and really appreciate your time. And looking forward to working with you guys in the industry. I think we've got a lot of the same type of customer base, and really looking forward to work with you guys.
Well, it's been a pleasure for me, pleasure for the entire team. Thank you for being on Full of Ship, and tune in next time we release a podcast and, check out what's happening here on Full of Ship, Matt.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for joining Kyle and his guest on the Full of Ship podcast. Be sure to subscribe and tune in next time as Kyle continues to demystify ocean carrier tracking with his future guests.